The operation kicked off with Noelle, who wasn't really a journalist, but an undercover operative playing the part, slipping into a covert CIA base. Her job? Help set up the perfect trap to catch Gradov, a notorious international fugitive who'd been dodging authorities for years. When surveillance screens lit up with Gradov's face, the CIA jumped into action, convinced they had him cornered at last. But things weren't as they seemed. The man on the feed was nothing more than a lookalike. Gradov had anticipated the move and sent his team to spring a bloody counterattack. The strike was brutal. The CIA squad barely stood a chance. Within minutes, most of the agents were gunned down, and the agency's prized tech project, Esalen, a cutting-edge artificial intelligence designed to crack into global communications, completely failed to launch. Instead, Gradov hijacked it for himself. Noelle fought with everything she had, determined not to give up, but the opposition was overwhelming. In the chaos, she took a bullet from one of Gradov's men. With the battlefield cleared, Gradov secured the site, eliminated the remaining CIA survivors, and walked away with control of Esalen. Noelle was listed as missing in action. For the world, it felt like humanity had just lost its first war. The narrative then pivots across the Atlantic, where Britain's Prime Minister, Sam, was losing his patience. The press couldn't stop buzzing about the newly elected U.S. president, Will Derringer. Unlike Sam, who had built his career the hard way, was a former movie star who had won office largely on charisma and fame. Sam had backed Will's opponent in the election, and that sore spot hadn't faded. On top of that, Sam had a personal tie to Noelle, and hearing of her disappearance in the failed CIA mission made his blood boil. From that moment, Sam became personally invested in hunting down Gradov. Investigators digging through Gradov's history uncovered that NATO had blown up one of his illegal weapons labs 2 years earlier. Since then, he dropped off the grid. But news of the CIA disaster eventually leaked in America, sparking outrage. The government scrambled to calm the storm, issuing statements while trying to manage damage control. Around the same time, Will Derringer set off on a diplomatic trip to the UK. He and Sam appeared side by side at a press conference, but the show of unity didn't last long. Sarcasm laced nearly every word between the two, their disdain bleeding through until their aides rushed in to smooth things over. Quincy, Sam's closest aide, later floated an idea. Maybe the two leaders should travel together to Italy. It could ease the tension and present a united front. While this political dance was happening, Gradov had his attention on a mercenary he blamed for screwing up part of his plan. The hired gun had been paid generously, but Gradov decided his usefulness had expired. Pretending he might let him live, Gradov suddenly attacked, smashing him with a steaming kettle and pouring boiling water over him until the man's screams fell silent. It was a ruthless reminder of who Gradov really was. Meanwhile, unaware of the horror unfolding on the other side of the world, Sam and Will boarded Air Force One to continue their diplomatic tour. The friendly act they put on during boarding helped soften media criticism, at least temporarily. Inside the plane, Will tried to keep spirits light, making a video call to his family. But once the call ended, the bickering between him and Sam reignited like clockwork. At the very same time, a member of Gradov's network had already infiltrated the aircraft, disguised as part of the catering staff. The imposter moved swiftly, killing the communications officer, cutting off all outgoing signals, and disabling the jet's stealth mode so the plane's location was exposed. It didn't take long for enemy drones to swarm in, unleashing a devastating assault. Air Force One's defense systems fought back, but they couldn't stop the onslaught. Engines burst into flames, and the aircraft shuddered under the damage. The infiltrator, still in disguise, went after Sam and with lethal intent. One of their aides jumped in, buying them precious seconds, but the situation spiraled quickly. Explosions ripped through the fuselage. The saboteur, badly burned but alive, destroyed almost every parachute before escaping with the last intact one. 2 chutes remained. In his final act of loyalty, the aide shoved instructions at Sam and Will, pointing them toward a CIA hideout in Poland and ordering them to head to a mining company beneath the Gdansk Bridge once they regrouped. With no time left, he forced them to jump. Seconds later, Sam and Will hurled themselves out of the burning plane just before it smashed into the earth. The fiery crash of Air Force One shook the entire globe, with headlines declaring both leaders dead. But the truth was different. They survived. Will landed awkwardly in a tree, whining about wanting to call his wife, but Sam insisted they ditch every device. If word got out they were alive, the whole ruse would collapse. Sam suspected an insider had betrayed them. The attack had been too precise to be coincidence. Staying hidden was their only hope. According to law, when a U.S. president dies, the vice president automatically takes office, and the CIA's global security systems reset under the new leader. Gradov had been counting on this. With his team of hackers, he slipped into the chaos and began exploiting the reset to seize more control. Meanwhile, Sam and Will trudged through dense forest, still arguing constantly. Their path led them straight into a group of hostile young men near a car they wanted to steal. Will tried his trademark charm to talk them down, but the mob turned ugly fast. Violence broke out. Sam, who wasn't a fighter but had bulk and grit, managed to shield them, but they were soon surrounded by knives and bats. Just as things looked hopeless, the local woman blasted a shotgun into the air, scattering the youths. She offered the battered leaders shelter and agreed to help them cross the border. Along the journey, cracks in their icy relationship started to thaw. They swapped personal stories, realizing they weren't so different after all. When they reached the border, the woman smuggled them past guards by hiding them among livestock. Suspicion lingered, but she bribed the soldiers with a sheep, earning them safe passage to Warsaw. Grateful, Will handed her his expensive watch. Soon after, he and Sam arrived at a CIA Safehouse in Poland. But unknown to them, their presence had already triggered alarms within Esselin, now under Gradov's control. Cameras had caught them, and his men were closing in. Inside, a young operative named Marty nearly collapsed with relief upon seeing the president alive. Relief didn't last long. Gradov's hack had already dumped more than 20,000 classified CIA files online, sparking global chaos. That had been his masterstroke all along. Will quickly ordered Marty to alert Washington of his survival. But before he could, every piece of tech in the room went dead. The enemy was at the door. Marty grabbed a portable monitor tied to the Safehouse's defense system and set up traps, launching ambushes as waves of Gradov's men stormed in. But they were too many. When the CCTV camera feeding his monitor was destroyed, Marty lost his eyes on the battlefield. During their retreat, he was shot. Bleeding out, he begged Sam and Will to escape through a hidden exit. As grenades tore through the building, the two leaders ducked into a concealed lift behind a wall that carried them down to the basement. But even there, Gradov's men were already waiting. Just as capture seemed certain, a car screeched in. Behind the wheel was Noelle, alive. She had survived the earlier gunfight thanks to her body armor and had deliberately faked her death to stalk Gradov in the shadows. Pulling Sam and Will to safety, she revealed what her investigation had uncovered. Gradov's own son had been a nuclear scientist, his discoveries later used by the U.S. government. That family history, twisted with betrayal, was one of the hidden keys to Gradov's obsession and fury. Gradov's vendetta had roots far deeper than anyone first realized. Years ago, his son, a brilliant scientist, had his mind tapped and twisted for military purposes. With his father's backing, the young man had been instrumental in piecing together a nuclear weapon. But that dangerous project never reached its full conclusion. The CIA discovered what was happening and stepped in. During the raid, Gradov's son was killed. That loss scarred him forever. From that day forward, Gradov's life was about payback. Revenge became his guiding principle, and he made it clear he wouldn't stop until the world suffered the same pain he had. Now, though, the big question wasn't just about Gradov. It was about betrayal. Someone from inside the Western Alliance was clearly helping him. Will, still shaken from everything, started to look suspiciously at Sam's closest aide. After all, it had been that man's idea for both leaders to travel together to Italy, a move that nearly cost them their lives. Will wasn't ready to fully accuse him yet, but the seed of doubt had been planted. For the moment, survival mattered more than pointing fingers. The trio, Sam, Noelle, and Will, decided NATO headquarters was their safest destination. They jumped onto a train bound for Austria, hoping to stay one step ahead of Gradov's men. But safety wasn't going to last long. The Esselin system, now in Gradov's grip, traced them yet again. The train might as well have had a spotlight over it. Tensions rose inside their little group. That morning, old wounds resurfaced between Sam and Noelle. They argued bitterly, exposing personal history that left Will scratching his head. Why would a prime minister have such a tangled past with a field agent? The question lingered, but there was no time for answers. Just as the shouting died down, enemy soldiers stormed the train. Gunfire echoed through the cars. Among the chaos, an unexpected twist appeared. Arthur, one of Gradov's hackers, had a sudden change of heart. Disgusted with Gradov's cruelty, he chose that moment to switch sides. Ducking bullets, he hurried to Sam and Will, blurting out secrets about how they could prove who the traitor inside their government really was. Before they could ask more, Arthur was hit. Wounded and bleeding, he grabbed Will's hand, scribbling shaky symbols and words across his palm. The key to unlocking the hidden communication link between Gradov and his insider. His last warning was chilling. Don't go to the station. They're already waiting for you there. Jump before it stops. Arthur slumped, gone. The train screeched closer to its destination. Through the windows, Will and Sam saw dozens of Gradov soldiers waiting at the platform, weapons in hand. With no choice, they threw themselves off the train before it rolled in, crashing painfully onto the gravel below. Back in Washington, things were unraveling just as quickly. With the world convinced the American president was dead, the vice president had stepped into power. But the fallout from the CIA leaks was too much. NATO allies, furious and distrustful, began pulling away from the alliance one by one. It looked like the organization was about to collapse entirely. After a long and brutal trek, Sam, Noel, and Will finally reached what used to be Gradov's command center. Following Arthur's cryptic clue, they climbed to the upper floors, searching every inch. What they found was a glass case concealing advanced equipment. Inside was a device storing secret communications, messages that tied Gradov directly to his mole. But before they could breathe, the Esalen system triggered again. Gradov's forces were closing in. The glass shattered. Behind a false wall was a hidden chamber filled with weapons. Desperation took over. Sam grabbed the bag of gear, fumbling clumsily with grenades. He nearly blew them all to bits before tossing the bag away in panic. They fought back fiercely, but ran low on ammo almost immediately. In the end, the only weapon left was a sonic blaster. Sam, with no other choice, pulled the trigger. The deafening wave knocked several soldiers off their feet. Then, almost as suddenly as the attack began, it stopped. The enemy pulled back, regrouping. It felt strange, like they'd been ordered to stand down. Seconds later, Noel cracked into the computer and found the truth. The traitor wasn't Sam Zaid. It was closer to home. The mole was Bradshaw, Will's own trusted aide. That's when everything clicked. The retreat made sense. Gradov himself had arrived on the scene. A helicopter descended, lifting the glass case with the device. Trapped inside with it, Noel and Will were carried off. Sam stayed behind, barely dodging a hail of bullets, nearly killed before the chopper disappeared. In midair, Noel and Will fought desperately. As the helicopter soared, they managed a daring escape, leaping from the aircraft onto the roof of a neighboring building. Believing they were dead, Gradov ordered the device dumped. But his troubles weren't over. One of his own lieutenants had turned against him, hiring mercenaries to finish him off. The betrayal failed. Gradov fought savagely and lived through the ambush. Meanwhile, Noel and Will stole a small boat and headed to Tries, the city hosting the NATO summit. Once ashore, we used a secure line to contact Vice President Kirk. Shocked by his survival, Kirk sent the presidential motorcade to collect them. Relief was short-lived. Inside the car, the truth came crashing down. Kirk herself was the real traitor. Bradshaw had been nothing but a cover name she used when dealing with Gradov. Stunned, Will tried to play the fool, cracking jokes and acting clumsy to distract the guards. His act gave Noel a split second of opportunity. She snatched a weapon and opened fire. Bullets tore through the car, killing the driver. The vehicle careened out of control. To make matters worse, Gradov's men swarmed the road, spraying gunfire. Just as doom felt certain, a massive fire truck roared into the fray. Behind the wheel was Sam, alive. Will and Noel could hardly believe their eyes. But the miracle wasn't without cost. Gradov's fighters riddled the truck with bullets until it caught fire. An RPG whistled through the air, striking the vehicle and setting off explosions. Moments before it was destroyed completely, Sam leapt into the car with them, taking the wheel. He barked at Will to help Noel handle the last gunman inside, while he focused on outdriving their pursuers. Will triggered smoke bombs from the car, filling the road with thick fog. Confused, Gradov's men faltered, giving them space to escape. They tore through the streets, explosions rattling behind them. Another RPG screamed toward them, but Sam's sharp driving swerved them out of harm's way just in time. The chase ended at the NATO building. Inside, chaos reigned. Member states were divided, many ready to pull the plug on NATO completely. Sam and Will burst in, revealing the betrayal and demanding unity. They exposed Kirk in front of the leaders. She tried to defend herself, painting her treachery as necessary, but she never finished her argument. Gradov stormed the chamber himself, gunning her down mid-sentence. Then he unleashed grenades and machine gun fire on the assembly, scattering terrified delegates. The summit hall turned into a battlefield. From the upper balcony, Noel fought hand-to-hand against Gradov's soldiers. Down below, Sam and Emil scrambled to guide leaders to safety. Gradov attempted to retreat via helicopter once again, climbing to the rooftop as his men fell around him. The rooftop battle was vicious, Will fired wildly, somehow managing to take down one of Gradov's guards. Noel engaged another in brutal close combat, finally toppling him down the stairwell. Gradov, cornered, whipped out a hidden weapon and sprinted toward the helicopter. Sam drew enemy fire, stepping into the line of bullets. He was hit and dropped, but his sacrifice bought them one last chance. Out of options, Will grabbed a heavy statue nearby and hurled it into the spinning rotor blades. The helicopter's engine tore apart. Flames erupted as the craft spun out, exploding into a fireball with Gradov still inside. The threat was finally over. 2 months later, Sam was still alive, though badly scarred from his wounds. He and Will met quietly at a restaurant, far away from the chaos that had nearly destroyed them. Their friendship, forged through fire, was undeniable. Sam, once so guarded, even leaned on Will for personal advice. For the first time in years, the Prime Minister wasn't carrying the weight of his burdens alone.